Kayla stepped out of the gas station bathroom, one hand on her swollen belly, expecting to see her husband James waiting by the SUV. Instead, she saw him in the driver's seat, smirking, with his mother Diana and sister Ashley laughing in the back. "Take a nice walk," James shouted, just before the car sped away, leaving her stranded in 95-degree Florida heat. Her purse, everything was still in the car. 8 months pregnant, abandoned, and humiliated, but she wasn't alone. Tom, the gas station owner, had seen the whole thing. He led her inside, handed her a bottle of cold water, and calmly said, "Don't worry, I've got security cameras, and what they just did, it's all on tape." Kayla didn't cry. She didn't panic. She sat down, took a breath, and knew exactly what she needed to do. She was going to bring them down. "I'm Kayla Thompson, teacher, mother-to-be, and the last person my husband should have tried to break. Ever been humiliated in public by the people who were supposed to love you most?" Kayla Thompson was 32 and deeply rooted in her community as a kindergarten teacher in Jacksonville, Florida. Her classroom was filled with bright drawings, patient encouragement, and little arms that clung to her with love. She had always believed in kindness, in second chances, and in building a future based on trust. That's why, when she met James Wilson at a charity gala 3 years earlier, she let herself believe he was different. James was charming in that practiced corporate way, impeccably dressed, polite, and always ready with a warm smile. Unlike his family, who exuded entitlement, James seemed grounded. Or so she thought. Diana Wilson, James's mother, was the head of the prestigious Wilson Family Foundation. She never made her disapproval of Kayla a secret. From the very beginning, Diana called her sweet, simple, and quaint, polite words that cut like glass. "A kindergarten teacher is adorable," she once said at a formal dinner. "But I always hoped James would marry someone with a bit more pedigree." Ashley, James's sister, took it further. She orchestrated humiliating setups, inviting Kayla to a casual brunch that turned out to be a formal board meeting, or forgetting to mention the dress code for a black tie gala. Each event left Kayla feeling out of place, unworthy, and exhausted. In the first year of marriage, James defended her. When Diana made a snide comment, he would gently change the subject. When Ashley pulled another stunt, he'd scold her afterward in private. It gave Kayla hope. She believed they were building something stronger than the judgment around them. But then she got pregnant, and everything changed. At first, James seemed excited about the baby. He painted the nursery and read parenting books. But as the pregnancy progressed, so did his distance. The support turned into sarcasm. He began echoing his mother's critical tone, joking that Kayla looked too tired to be presentable, or that maybe she should take maternity leave early before embarrassing herself in the classroom. At family events, he stopped intervening when Diana and Ashley made fun of him. He started laughing along with them. Kayla, hurt but hopeful, clung to the idea that things would improve once the baby arrived. She told herself James was just stressed. Maybe Diana's influence was temporary. Maybe he'd come back to her. So when James suggested one last family vacation before the baby came, a trip to Daytona Beach, Kayla agreed. He said Diana and Ashley wanted to make peace, that it would be... And even though her instincts screamed otherwise, she said yes, because she wanted to believe him. She wanted her daughter to have a united family. But the moment they left Jacksonville, the red flags multiplied. James insisted Diana sit in the front passenger seat for the entire trip, claiming it was because she got car sick. He made Kayla squeeze into the back, even though she was 8 months pregnant. Diana and Ashley whispered and giggled the whole drive, tossing looks back at her with thinly veiled amusement. When they stopped for food, no one asked Kayla if she was hungry. When she asked to use the restroom at a gas station, James grumbled about making everyone wait. And then came the moment that would define everything. The SUV pulling away as she walked out, abandoned and mocked by the people who were supposed to love her most. That moment wasn't born of heat or tension. It was premeditated, months in the making, a betrayal that had been orchestrated behind smirks and smiles until it was fully realized in the Florida sun. And Kayla? She was done pretending. The teacher had taken enough notes. It was time to respond. Kayla stood frozen outside the gas station, the Florida heat pressing down like a weight. The SUV disappeared down the highway, laughter still ringing in her ears. Her phone, purse, and carefully packed hospital bag were all in the car. She was alone, 8 months pregnant, and completely stranded. But she wasn't invisible. Tom, the gas station owner, had seen it all from the front counter. Without a word, he rushed out, gently took her arm, and led her inside. His wife Barbara followed close behind, visibly shaken by what they had just witnessed. Tom ushered her into the back office, offered her a cold bottle of water, and pulled up the security footage. "You need to see this," he said softly. The video was crystal clear, James leaning out the driver's window, grinning, shouting, "Take a nice walk." His mother and sister laughing behind him. Kayla flinched. It was worse than she'd remembered. Barbara's face turned hard. "This isn't just abandonment," she said. "This is abuse." Without waiting for permission, she picked up the landline and called the local news station. "They need to see what kind of monsters they are," she declared. Kayla didn't stop her. For once, she felt no shame. While Barbara spoke with the newsroom, Kayla borrowed the phone to call her best friend Nicole. As soon as Nicole picked up and heard Kayla's voice, she gasped. "Oh my God, Kayla, are you okay? Do you know what they're posting right now?" Tom swiveled his office monitor around and logged into Facebook. There it was, James's latest post, a sunny shot of him, Diana, and Ashley lounging poolside at their beach resort, drinks in hand. The caption read, "Finally free, beach life, family first." The comments underneath were full of laughter and praise from their social circle. Kayla's hands trembled. That photo was posted less than 30 minutes after they'd left her in 95-degree heat with no shelter, no identification, and no way to reach help. But what hit harder was the realization that her hospital bag, the one she'd packed weeks ago with every essential for her delivery, was gone. So was her phone. Everything she might need in case of early labor had been taken away, left in that car with the people who had just abandoned her. Suddenly, a sharp cramp rippled through her abdomen. She gripped the edge of Tom's desk. "Just Braxton Hicks," she muttered, trying to sound steady. Barbara's eyes narrowed, watching her. Then came another contraction, sharper than the last. Tom was already dialing 911 nearest hospitals, 40 minutes away, he told the dispatcher. At that moment, a Channel 7 news van pulled into the parking lot. Jennifer Parker, the reporter, took one look at Kayla and made a split-second decision. "We'll do the interview at the hospital. This story isn't just about abandonment anymore. It's about endangering a pregnant woman and her unborn child." Kayla, still holding her belly, nodded. The humiliation was behind her now. What came next would be justice. And it was only beginning. At the hospital, Kayla lay in bed, breathing slowly as monitors tracked her and her unborn child. The doctors confirmed the contractions were stress-induced false labor, but given her condition, they chose to keep her overnight for observation. The sharp contrast to the emotional whirlwind unfolding beyond its walls. Kayla's body was safe for now, but her life had just detonated. Nicole arrived that evening, carrying Kayla's retrieved phone and hospital bag. A resort employee, having seen the news coverage, had contacted Nicole and returned her belongings discreetly. As soon as Kayla powered on her phone, it buzzed nonstop. Her inbox was flooded with messages, reporters, and even former colleagues, offering support, but it was the video playing on the room's television that caught her full attention. Diana Wilson, perfectly styled in designer resort wear, was giving a live interview from the hotel pool deck. "It's a misunderstanding," she said smoothly, her voice honeyed with practiced concern. "Kayla has been very emotional lately. Pregnancy hormones, you know. She asked for time alone, and we respected her wishes." Kayla nearly laughed out loud. She wasn't sure what was more outrageous, the blatant lie, or the way Diana still spoke with aristocratic detachment. But then the newscaster responded, "We have clear security footage of your family laughing as you drove away. Mrs. Thompson was 8 months pregnant with no phone, no purse, and stranded in dangerous heat. How do you explain that?" Diana's expression twitched for the briefest moment before she muttered, The footage must be misleading. The public wasn't buying it. Comments under the video were explosive. Major donors to the Wilson Family Foundation were pulling their support. One high-priced front fare from a firm withdrew from Diana's oncoming fundraiser. Their name was unraveling. But it didn't stop there. Nicole handed Kayla a flash drive. "You need to see this," she said grimly. A trusted source inside the Wilson Foundation had sent Nicole a series of leaked emails. One message from Diana read, "She's an embarrassment. We'll teach her not to humiliate this family again." Another, from Ashley to James, "We'll guarantee we get custody." Kayla's blood ran cold. This hadn't been a cruel impulse. It was calculated. Then came the knock on her hospital door. Amanda, James's longtime executive assistant, stepped inside nervously, clutching a folder. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore," she whispered. She laid out documents across Kayla's bed. Insurance paperwork, memos, and internal emails. James and Diana had taken out multiple life insurance policies, some with clauses specific to maternal complications. None of them Kayla had been told about. One email even detailed a strategy to provoke Kayla into a public meltdown, to frame her as emotionally unfit. "The gas station," Amanda said quietly. "It wasn't random. It was meant to push you over the edge." Kayla looked down at her belly, trembling with fury. They hadn't just betrayed her, they had endangered her child. Now, it was criminal, and she was ready to make sure the world knew it. Lying in her hospital bed, Kayla adjusted her blanket and sat upright as the camera crew began to set up. Jennifer Parker, the journalist who had followed the story from the moment it broke, stood beside her with gentle urgency. "You don't have to do this," she offered softly, but Kayla nodded. "I want people to know the truth." The interview was raw. Kayla spoke clearly, her voice steady despite the exhaustion behind her eyes. She detailed everything: how James's behavior had shifted during her pregnancy, how his family orchestrated subtle humiliations to wear her down, and how it all escalated to being left alone at a gas station while 8 months pregnant in the blistering heat. She talked about the baby bag they took, the phone they knew she needed, and the moments she realized it had all been planned. Most of all, she spoke of the moment it stopped being about betrayal and became about protecting her daughter. The interview aired that evening, and within hours, it went viral. Social media exploded with outrage. Thousands of women began sharing their own stories of emotional abuse, manipulation, and abandonment. Hashtags trended, "Stand with Kayla," "To protect mothers." The footage from the gas station played on every major network. The clear video showing James's Usiavu pulling away, the mocking laughter, and the sound of his voice yelling, "Take a nice walk." Then came the second wave. Tom, the gas station owner, had reviewed additional footage from the dashcam inside James's SUV recordings he'd retrieved after being contacted by law enforcement. On the audio, Diana's voice was unmistakable. "This will teach her not to embarrass our family," she sneered, just moments before Kayla exited the restroom. The deliberate nature of the act was now undeniable. Florida Values Insurance, the conservative firm where James worked as a mid-level executive, released a statement that they were launching an immediate internal investigation. Days earlier, they'd proudly associated with the Wilson family's traditional values. Now they were trying to separate themselves as quickly as possible. That separation became real the following day, when the company's chief ethics officer, Michael Roberts, personally visited Kayla's hospital room. He entered solemnly, holding a thick file folder and accompanied by his legal assistant. "Mrs. Thompson," he began, "I'm deeply sorry for what you've experienced. After reviewing corporate emails and internal logs, it's clear James used company resources to removing you as a parent." He laid out the evidence. James had sent dozens of emails from his work account to custody attorneys and private investigators. He had forwarded drafts of incident logs meant to portray Kayla as unstable. Roberts paused before adding, "Some of these emails were CC'd to your mother-in-law." Kayla swallowed hard, stunned but not surprised. But that wasn't the end. After the interview aired, multiple women from Florida Values Insurance had come forward with complaints. They said James had a long history of harassment, snide remarks, unwanted advances, and intimidation masked behind charm. Many had been afraid to speak out, fearing professional retaliation from a family so tightly woven into the company's image. Caleb looked around the room, then down at her belly as her daughter moved. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about a culture that had allowed cruelty, manipulation, and exploitation to flourish unchecked. And now, thanks to a single act of betrayal caught on tape, the entire world was watching. And she was just getting started. The fallout came fast and brutal. Within 24 hours of Kayla's hospital interview airing, Diana's beloved Wilson Family Foundation was under federal investigation. Internal emails, once shielded by boardroom silence, began flooding the inboxes of journalists and watchdog groups. Anonymous whistleblowers came forward, former staffers, interns, even disgruntled donors. Their statements painted a picture of years of financial manipulation, fabricated reports, and cruel strategies targeting anyone who stepped out of line. Kayla watched it all unfold from her hospital bed, cradling her belly as labor crept closer. The first to act were the foundation's major sponsors. Press releases flew out in rapid succession, corporations and philanthropists disavowing any connection to the Wilsons. Diana's calendar cleared overnight. Endowments vanished. The Country Club of Jacksonville, the family's social crown jewel, revoked their lifetime membership, citing conduct unbecoming of its values. Then came the resort. After a barrage of complaints from other guests and growing media attention, management personally escorted Diana, James, and Ashley out of their luxury suite. Reporters caught the entire spectacle on video. Diana wearing oversized sunglasses, trying to shield her face as protesters chanted outside the gates. Jennifer Parker reported live from the scene. The Wilson family has gone from elite influencers to national pariahs in under 48 hours. But the biggest blow was still coming. That evening, Caleb received a secure message from James's executive assistant, Amanda. It contained a digital folder of damning documents, copies of life insurance policies taken out without Caleb's knowledge, emails coordinating the timing of the gas station abandonment, and memos to custody lawyers plotting how to portray her as emotionally unstable. Amanda's note was short. "I stayed quiet too long. You deserve justice. The FBI deserve this." Kayla forwarded the documents to Jennifer, who confirmed the federal authorities were already preparing to act. Less than 6 hours later, the FBI raided the roadside motel where the Wilsons had been hiding from the press. Jennifer's crew was there, rolling live footage as agents handcuffed Diana and led her into the back of a black SUV. Her designer scarf fell to the pavement as photographers snapped away. James and Ashley were detained soon after. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Kayla's contractions intensified. With Nicole and Barbara by her side, she delivered a healthy baby girl in the early hours of the next morning. They named her Lily, a symbol of rebirth, strength, and grace. As the doctors placed the newborn in her arms, Kayla felt more than relief. She felt powerful. Lily was born into a storm, but surrounded by love. Outside the hospital, a makeshift memorial of flowers and notes grew larger by the hour. Strangers stopped by just to wish Kayla strength. Law enforcement officers stood watch around the building. The hospital's maternity ward, once quiet, now pulsed with press teams, legal aides, and women's rights advocates offering their support. Kayla's story had become more than a headline. It was a reckoning. Across social media, women shared their own stories of abandonment, financial control, and calculated emotional abuse. Hashtags trended worldwide. Lawyers specializing in maternal protection laws reached out to Kayla's team, offering to help her push for new legislation. Florida lawmakers proposed an emergency bill, the Thompson Protection Act, making it a felony to abandon a pregnant woman in dangerous conditions. From her hospital window, Kayla could see the sunrise, casting golden light across the parking lot. Jennifer knocked gently and entered with the news. "The FBI just confirmed it's no longer just fraud. They're adding conspiracy charges." Kayla nodded, gently rocking Lily. "They thought they could bury me," she whispered, "but they didn't realize I was the seed." What started as a staged humiliation at a gas station had become a national movement. The Wilsons had underestimated the woman they tried to break. Instead, They'd created a force they couldn't contain. And now, with a daughter in her arms and the nation behind her, Kayla was no longer just surviving. She was leading the charge. The aftermath was swift, decisive, and impossible for the Wilsons to contain. James was officially arrested and charged with multiple felonies: insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit custody interference, and workplace harassment. As news broke of his arrest, more women from Florida Values Insurance stepped forward, detailing a pattern of intimidation and misconduct stretching back years. His former employer, once proud of his polished public image, released a statement condemning his actions and pledging reforms to prevent future abuses of power. Diana, once the face of family values in Florida's social elite, was charged with fraud and child endangerment. Prosecutors cited her direct role in orchestrating the abandonment and her clear intention to provoke a medical crisis in a pregnant woman. The evidence was irrefutable. Diana, financial records, her carefully curated image dissolved overnight. The judge denied her bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the charges. Ashley, who had always lingered in the shadow of her family's privilege, faced consequences of a different kind. While not criminally charged, her text messages revealed a disturbing willingness to manipulate and destroy. She was banned from every major professional network she once depended on. Former colleagues and social contacts cut ties. Event organizers removed her from boards. Invitations stopped, reputation ruined. The Wilson Family Foundation was dismantled within weeks, its nonprofit status revoked, its assets frozen pending investigation, and its leadership blacklisted across the philanthropic community. Donors who once applauded their charity work now released public statements of regret. Everything they had built on image and reputation crumbled under the weight of their cruelty. For Kayla, the legal system gave her more than justice. It gave her protection. She was granted full custody of Lily without opposition. The judge cited overwhelming evidence of endangerment and deceit by James and his family. James was barred from contacting Kayla directly and could only petition for visitation under strict court supervision, something his legal team didn't even attempt. But the courtroom victory wasn't the only triumph. The Thompson Protection Act passed unanimously through Florida's legislature. The bill, named in honor of Kayla, made it a felony to deliberately abandon a pregnant woman in conditions that could jeopardize her health or that of her unborn child. It also established handsome penalties for abandonment involving emotional abuse, coercion, or documented planning. It was a legal first, and it wouldn't be the last. Kayla's story became a national case study in maternal protection, media manipulation, and institutional accountability. She was invited to speak at panels on ethical leadership, domestic manipulation, and corporate reform. Her bravery was highlighted by organizations across the country advocating for women's rights and systemic change. She didn't seek fame, she sought justice. And in doing so, she became a symbol of hope for countless others who had suffered in silence. Kayla used her voice not to destroy, but to rebuild. She started consulting with nonprofits on ethics training, helped shape policy discussions in Florida's capital, and continued to speak on panels. The Wilsons had intended to erase her. Instead, they had elevated her, and Kayla, with Lily in her arms and truth at her back, never looked back. 3 months after the storm, Kayla stepped back into her kindergarten classroom. The same cheerful room where she had once quietly struggled with fear and uncertainty now welcomed her like a sanctuary. Parents had decorated her desk with flowers, handmade signs from students hung along the walls, and a cake in the teacher's lounge bore the words, "Welcome back, Miss Thompson. You made us proud." The children ran to her with hugs and drawings of her holding baby Lily. In their eyes, she wasn't just their teacher, she was a hero. Florida Values Insurance reached out with a consulting offer, an opportunity to advise on ethical reform, community engagement, and internal oversight. It was generous. But Kayla declined. Her purpose had shifted. She didn't want to return to the corporate world, not even to help fix it. Instead, she partnered with grassroots organizations, supporting pregnant women in crisis, survivors of emotional abuse, and mothers fighting unjust custody battles. She began leading workshops across the state, teaching women how to document abuse, navigate family law, and recognize the signs of manipulation masked as care. Kayla wasn't just telling her story. She was helping others find the courage to tell theirs. Nicole, who had stood by her from the beginning, officially became Lily's godmother. Tom and Barbara, the gas station couple whose kindness changed everything, visited monthly. Tom had printed stills from the security footage the moment James drove away, the moment Caleb was helped inside, and framed them as a reminder that even cruelty can ignite change when witnessed by the right people. Kayla's hospital interview continued to circulate online, inspiring women across the country to speak up. Several state legislators cited her case while introducing protective bills for pregnant women, caregivers, and emotionally abused spouses. Her inbox was flooded with letters from women who had watched her story unfold and found the strength to leave, to believe they weren't alone. Her living room wall held a new centerpiece now. A framed newspaper headline, "Pregnant Woman Abandoned Sparks National Movement." Below it, a quote from one of her speaking engagements. "They tried to humiliate me. Instead, they handed me a microphone." Lily grew in a home built on strength, surrounded by love. Kayla read to her every night, whispering promises of a world where she would never doubt her worth. Her laughter echoed through rooms once shadowed by betrayal. What James and his family meant to destroy had become Kayla's foundation. She didn't rise from the ashes, they became the soil beneath her feet. With every speech, every workshop, every hug from Lily, she built something new. Not revenge. Resilience. Not silence. A voice that couldn't be ignored. And with each step forward, Kayla proved that no betrayal, not even one as public and cruel as hers, could define her. Only her response could. And she had chosen power, purpose, and peace. The porch creaked gently beneath Kayla's rocking chair as the Florida sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden light across the yard. Lily, warm and sleepy, nestled against her chest, breathing in soft little puffs. The air was calm, filled only with the rustle of wind through the trees and the faint chirping of evening crickets. For the first time in a long while, there were no news alerts, no court filings, no interviews waiting. Just this moment. Just them. Kayla's gaze drifted across the horizon, and her mind, unbidden, returned to that gas station, to the unbearable heat, to the shock of the car pulling away, to James's smug voice calling out, "Take a nice walk." He had thought he was winning. He believed she'd fold, break, disappear. But he didn't know her at all. That was the moment, she realized, not of abandonment, but of rebirth. He may have left her on the side of the road, but she had picked herself up and walked straight into her future. She kissed the top of Lily's head and whispered, "You'll grow up knowing your mother never stayed silent, that when others tried to take everything, she chose to fight." Lily stirred slightly, one tiny fist curling around her mother's necklace. "And because of that," Kayla continued, voice low and steady, "no one will ever silence you." The last light of day settled around them like a promise, and for the first time in months, peace wasn't a hope, it was home.